Hello and welcome back. Today is Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. We are reading chapter 15 today, and I am getting right into it. Chapter 15. The stair was to the north of the middle ship of the four. Concealed by both magic and artifice, it seemed to be little more than a particularly wet patch of the damp limestone that formed the sinkhole wall, but you could walk right through it, for it was really an open door, with steps winding up behind. They decided to take these steps the next morning, after another day of rest. Sabriel was eager to move on, for she felt that her father's peril could only be increasing, but she was realistic enough to assess her own need for recovery time. Touchstone, too, probably needed a rest, she thought. She'd tried to coax more information out of him while they'd searched for the steps, but he was clearly reluctant to even open his mouth, and when he did, Sabriel found his humble apologies ever more irritating. After the door was found, she gave up altogether, and sat in the grass near the spring, reading her father's books on charter magic. The Book of the Dead stayed wrapped in oilskin. Even then, she felt its presence, brooding in her pack. Touchstone stayed at the opposite end of the ship, near the bow, performing a series of fencing exercises with his twin swords, and some stretches and minor acrobatics. Mogget watched him from the undergrowth, green eyes glittering, as if intent on a mouse. Lunch was a culinary and conversational failure. Dried beef strips, garnished with watercress from the fringes of the spring, and monosyllabic responses from Touchstone. He even went back to "Milady," despite Sabriel's repeated request to use her name. Mogget didn't help by calling her Abhorsen. After lunch, everyone went back to their respective activities. Sabriel to her book, Touchstone to his exercises, and Mogget to his watching. Dinner was not something anyone had looked forward to. Sabriel tried talking to Mogget, but he seemed to be infected with Touchstone's reticence, though not with his servility. As soon as they'd eaten, everyone left the raked-together coals of the campfire, Touchstone to the west, Mogget north, and Sabriel east, and went to sleep on as comfortable a stretch of ground as could be discovered. Sabriel woke once in the night. Without getting up, she saw that the fire had been rekindled, and Touchstone sat beside it, staring into the flames, his eyes reflecting the capering gold-red light. His face looked drawn, almost ill. "Are you all right?" Sabriel asked quietly, propping herself up on one elbow. Touchstone started, rocked back on his heels, and almost fell over. For once he didn't sound like a sulky servant. "Not really. I remember what I would not, and forget what I should not. Forgive me." Sabriel didn't answer. He had spoken the last two words to the fire, not to her. "Please go back to sleep, milady," Touchstone continued, slipping back to his servile role. "I will wake you in the morning." Sabriel opened her mouth to say something scathing about the arrogance, or pretend humility, then shut it, and subsided back under her blanket. "Just concentrate on rescuing Father," she told herself. "That's the one important thing. Rescue Abhorsen. Don't worry about Touchstone's problems, or Mogget's curious nature. Rescue Abhorsen. Rescue Abhorsen. Rescue. "Wake up," Mogget said, right in her ear. She rolled over, ignoring him, but he leapt across her head and repeated it in her other ear. "Wake up!" "I'm awake," grumbled Sabriel. She sat up with the blanket wrapped around her, feeling the pre-dawn chill on her face and hands. It was still extremely dark, save for the uneven light of the fire and the faintest brushings of dawnlight above the sinkhole. Touchstone was already making porridge. He'd also washed and shaved, using a dagger from the look of the nicks and cuts on his chin and neck. "Good morning," he said. "This will be ready in 5 minutes, milady." Sabriel groaned at that word again. Feeling like a shambling, blanket-shrouded excuse for a human being, she picked up her shirt and trousers and staggered off to find a suitable bush en route to the spring. The icy water of the spring completed the wake-up process without kindness, Sabriel exposing herself to it and the marginally warmer air for no more than 10 seconds, than the 10 seconds it took to shed undershirt, wash, and get dressed again. Clean, awake, and clothed, she returned to the campfire and ate her share of the porridge. Then Touchstone ate, while Sabriel buckled on armor, sword, and bells. Mogget lay near the fire, warming his white-furred belly. Not for the first time, Sabriel wondered if he needed to eat at all. He obviously liked food, but he seemed to eat for amusement rather than sustenance. Touchstone continued being a servant after breakfast, cleaning pot and spoon, quenching the fire, and putting everything away. But when he was about to swing the pack on his back, Sabriel stopped him. "No, Touchstone, it's my pack. I'll carry it, thank you." He hesitated, then passed it to her, and would have helped her put it on, but she had her arms through the straps and the pack swung on before he could take the weight. Half an hour later, perhaps a third of the way up the narrow, stone-carved stair, Sabriel regretted her decision to take the pack. She still wasn't totally recovered from the paperweight crash, and the stair was very steep, and so narrow that she had difficulty negotiating the spiraling turns. The pack always seemed to jam against the outside or inside wall, no matter which way she turned. "Perhaps we should take it in turns to carry the pack," she said reluctantly, when they stopped at a sort of alcove to catch their breath. Touchstone, who had been leading, nodded, and came back down a few steps to take the pack. "I'll lead then," Sabriel added, flexing her back and shoulders, shuddering slightly at the pack-induced layer of sweat on her back, greasy under armor, tunic, shirt, and undershirt. She picked up her candle from the bench and stepped up. "No," said Touchstone, stepping in her way. "There are guards and guardians on this stair. I know the words and signs to pass them. You are the abhorsen, so they might let you past, but I'm not sure." "Your memories must be coming back," Sabriel commented, slightly peeved at being thwarted. "Tell me, is this stair the one you mentioned when you said the queen was ambushed?" "No," Touchstone replied flatly. He hesitated, then added, "That stair was in Belisare." With that, he turned and continued up the stairs. Sabriel followed, Mogget at her heels. Now that she wasn't lumbered by her pack, she felt more alert. Watching Touchstone, she saw him pause occasionally and mutter some words under his breath. Each time, there was the faint, feather-light touch of charter magic. Subtle magic, much cleverer than in the tunnel below. Harder to detect, and probably much more deadly, Sabriel thought. Now she knew it was there. She also picked up the faint sensation of death. This stair had seen killings a long, long time ago. Finally, they came to a large chamber with a set of double doors up to one side. Light leaked in from a large number of small, circular holes in the roof, or as Sabriel soon saw, through an overgrown lattice that had once been open to air and sky. "That's the outside door," Touchstone said, unnecessarily. He snuffed out his candle, took Sabriel's, now little more than a stub of wax, and put both in a pocket stitched to the front of his kilt. Sabriel thought of joking about the hot wax and the potential for damage, but thought better of it. Touchstone was not the light-hearted type. "So how does it open?" asked Sabriel, indicating the door. She couldn't see any handle, lock, or key, or any hinges for that matter. Touchstone was silent, eyes unfocused and staring. Then he laughed, a bitter little chuckle. "I don't remember. All the way up the stair, all the words and signals. And now useless. Useless." "At least you got us up the steps," Sabriel pointed out, alarmed by the violence in his self-loathing. "I'd still be sitting by the spring watching it bubble if you hadn't come along." "You would have found the way out," Touchstone muttered. "Or Mogget would." "Would! Yes, that's what I deserve to be." "Touchstone," Mogget interrupted, hissing. "Shut up! You're to be useful, remember?" "Yes," replied Touchstone, visibly calming his breathing, composing his face. "I'm sorry, Mogget. M'lady." "Please, please, just Sabriel," she said tiredly. "I've only just left school. I'm only 18. Calling me M'lady seems ridiculous." "Sabriel," Touchstone said tentatively. "I will try to remember. Milady is a habit. It reminds me of my place in the world. It's easier for me. I don't care what's easier for you, Sabriel snapped. Don't call me Milady, and stop acting like a half-wit. Just be yourself. Behave normally. I don't need a valet. I need a useful friend. Very well, Sabriel, Touchstone said, with careful emphasis. He was angry now. But at least that was an improvement over servile, Sabriel thought. Now, she said to the smirking Mogget, have you got any idea about this door? Just one, replied Mogget, sliding between her legs and over to the thin line that marked the division between the two leaves of the door. Push. One on each side. Push? Why not? Said Touchstone, shrugging. He took up a position, braced against the left side of the door, palms flat on the metal-studded wood. Sorry. Sabriel hesitated, then did the same against the right. 1, 2, 3, push, announced Mogget. Sabriel pushed on 3, and Touchstone on push, so their combined effort took several seconds to synchronize. Then the doors creaked slowly open, sunshine spilling through in a bright bar, climbing from floor to ceiling, dust motes dancing in its progress. It feels strange, said Touchstone, the wood humming beneath his hands, like plucked lute strings. I can hear voices, exclaimed Sabriel at the same time, her ears full of half-caught words, laughter, distant singing. I can see time, whispered Mogget, so softly that his words were lost. Then the doors were open. They walked through, shielding their eyes against the sun, feeling the cool breeze sharp on their skin, the fresh scent of pine trees clearing their nostrils of underground dust. Mogget sneezed quickly 3 times and ran about in a tight circle. The door slid shut behind them, as silently and inexplicably as they'd opened. They stood in a small clearing in the middle of a pine forest, or plantation. The trees were regularly spaced. The doors behind them stood in the side of a low hillock of turf and stunted bushes. Pine needles lay thick on the ground, pine cones peeking through every few paces, like skulls plowed up on some ancient battleground. The watchwood, said Touchstone. He took several deep breaths, looked at the sky, and sighed. It is winter, I think, or early spring? Winter, replied Sabriel. It was snowing quite heavily back near the wall. It seems much milder here. Most of the wall, the long cliffs, and Abhorson's house are on, or part of, the southern plateau, Mogget explained. The plateau is between 1,000 and 2,000 feet above the coastal plain. In fact, the area around Nassau, where we're headed, is mostly below sea level, and has been reclaimed. Yes, said Touchstone. I remember. Long Dyke, the raised canals, the wind pumps to raise the water. You're both very informative for a change, remarked Sabriel. Would one of you care to tell me something I really want to know? Like, what are the great charters? I can't, Mogget and Touchstone said together. Then Touchstone continued, haltingly. There's a spell, a binding on us, but someone who's not a charter mage, or otherwise closely bound to the charter, might be able to speak. A child, perhaps, baptized with the charter mark, but not grown into power. You are cleverer than I thought, commented Mogget. Not that that's saying much. A child, said Sabriel. Why would a child know? If you'd had a proper education, you'd know too, said Mogget. A waste of good silver, that school of yours. Perhaps, agreed Sabriel, but now that I know more of the Old Kingdom, I suspect being at school in Ancelstier saved my life. But enough of that. Which way do we go now? Touchstone looked at the sky, blue above the clearing, dark where the pines circled. The sun was just visible above the trees, perhaps an hour short of its noontime zenith. Touchstone looked from it to the shadows of the trees, then pointed. East. There should be a series of charter stones, leading from here to the eastern edge of the watchwood. This place is heavily warded with magic. There were many stones. The stones were still there, and after the first, some sort of animal track that meandered from one stone to the next. It was cool under the pines, but pleasant. The constant presence of the Charterstones, a reassuring sensation to Sabriel and Touchstone, who could sense them like lighthouses in the sea of trees. There were even 7 stones in all, and none of them broken, though Sabriel felt a stab of nervous tension every time they left the ambience of one and moved to another. A stark picture always flashing into her head, the blood-stained riven stone of Cloven Crest. The last stone stood on the very edge of the pine forest, atop a granite bluff 30 or 40 yards high, marking the forest's eastern edge and the end of high ground. They stood next to the stone and looked out towards the huge expanse of blue-gray sea, white-crested, restless, always rolling in to shore. Below them were the flat, sunken fields of Nestel, maintained by a network of raised canals, pumps, and dikes. The village itself lay 3/4 of a mile away, high on another granite bluff, the harbor out of sight on the other side. "The fields are flooded," said Touchstone in a puzzled tone, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Sabriel followed his gaze and saw that what she had taken for some crop was actually silt and water, sitting tepidly where food once grew. Windmills, power for the pumps, stood silent, trefoil-shaped vanes still atop scaffolding towers, even though a salt-laden breeze blew in from the sea. "But the pumps were charter-spelled," Touchstone exclaimed, "to follow the wind, to work without care." "There are no people in the fields, no one on this side of the village," Mogget added, his eyes keener than the telescope in Sabriel's pack. "Nestal's Charterstone must be broken," Sabriel said, mouth tight, words cold. "And I can smell a certain stench on the breeze. They are dead in the village." "A boat would be the quickest way to Belissair, and I'm reasonably confident of my sailings," Touchstone remarked. "But if the dead are there, shouldn't we—" "We'll go down and get a boat," Sabriel announced firmly, "while the sun is high." Whew, and that is the end of chapter 15. I have got a funny throat going on, so I am sorry that got read a little weird, but I will do better next time. Thank you so much for reading. Again, please like, comment, and subscribe if you've been enjoying this book. I don't know if I'm going to post this one tonight. I feel like I need to read this again, but I want to stay on track, so I'm probably going to post it. This wasn't my best one, but I got through it. I've had a really hard day today. I've been crying a lot today, and it's been really stressful today, so yeah. I hope you've had a better day than I have. Today's been really tough, and I feel silly crying at the end of this video, but I feel called to say that every day doesn't have to be the best day, but every day is a blessing. So do your best to get through it. And please know in your heart that there's always a chance that tomorrow is going to be better. So please don't give up. I'm not giving up. I just had a funny day. I know I'll feel better when I get this done and posted, but they can't always be great days. But they don't have to be bad days if you don't want them to be. And today was certainly not a bad day. I've just been having a lot of really, really great days recently, and this one was a big hiccup. So I'm healthy, and I'm safe, and my family is safe. And I had the energy and stamina to get through this chapter, so I'm really happy with that, but I really wish that it had been a better read. And I really don't feel good about posting this because I didn't read it the way I wanted to read it. But I want to get it done. I felt really good that I've been true to my word and I've posted every day at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I don't want to mess that up. But I want to do a really good job too. And I want people to go back and read these and not be like, ugh, that chapter could have been so much better. But again, I'm doing this for myself. I'm not doing this for you. I guess I just wanted to say that today hasn't been the best day. It certainly hasn't been a bad day, but I'm looking forward to tomorrow being way better and feeling better tomorrow. And I'm going to drink some tea tonight. I'm going to get a big warm blanket. I don't know, maybe I'll draw. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll go make some paper. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go make some paper because I am making some handmade paper journals that I'm really excited about having crafted, and I'm thinking about posting them on Etsy, which is something I haven't done in a long time, but I feel really called to do that again. I love making paper, and I love binding books. I used to have a paper making business years ago, before my son was born, and I've really been thinking about getting back into that, and I think that's going to be a good way to end this not so good day. So, sorry I'm all weepy at the end of this video, but if you're feeling yucky too today, I hope you can turn it around and make it better. I'm going to. And I'm rooting for you, and I hope you're rooting for me. And I love all you guys out there, even the ones of you that might not like these videos. Thanks for watching them anyways, so thank you, take care, and may your magic manifest. Tomorrow's gonna be better. I know it. So, don't give up. I love you. Take care. Good night. See you tomorrow. May your magic manifest.